Hello guys, welcome back to our anime explainer. Guys, please like the video and subscribe to my channel. Today is explanation of Soul Land 2 Peerless Tang Men based on novel. So let's start. Tang Wutong clenched her fist as she turned around and peered into the night sky. She stuck her tongue out at the sky and asked herself, Tang Wutong, what's wrong with you? Why are you missing that person? Don't tell me that you're jealous. Why? Just because he saved me. No, I can't be like that. He's just an ordinary person. Furthermore, he already has a lover. So what if he's outstanding? He's not particularly handsome either. Sleep, go and sleep. As she talked to herself, she started to walk towards her tent. However, she was walking very slowly. Early morning. The Immortal Doctor Doluo was delighted as she came to Huo Yuhao's tent and checked on his condition once again. Just as she had expected yesterday, she managed to break through the bottleneck that she had been facing for years after absorbing Huo Yuhao's pure life energy. She rose from rank 95 to rank 96. It wasn't easy. It had taken her close to 60 years. However, she had finally achieved this step. Huo Yuhao was undoubtedly responsible for this. This was why she came in the early morning. Even though she didn't need to perform any treatment on him, she still had to try her best to prevent him from suffering any problems during his recuperation process. It was a form of gratitude towards him. Huo Yuhao was in a stable condition. His broken passageways were slowly recovering, and he was recovering at a quick rate overall. Apart from the immense life energy in his body, there was another important reason for his speedy recovery. It was that his passageways immediately froze up in place after they were damaged. They didn't shift or change their positions at all. As they remained still, they played a very critical role in his recovery. Yi Gai didn't sleep the entire night. As she saw the Immortal Doctor Doluo silently nodding as she checked up on Huo Yuhao, she couldn't help but ask, Elder Immortal Doctor, how is Yuhao? Will he be fine? Wang Xiana glanced at her and was amused as she said, Young lady, the more concerned you are, the more disorderly you'll be. In terms of emotions, you have to work harder. There's some kind of pent-up gas in you. I assume it has something to do with him. I can sense that your martial soul comes from the same origin as mine. All right, I shall lend you a hand. As she spoke, the Immortal Doctor Doluo lifted her left hand and gently pressed on Yi Gai's chest. Suddenly, Yi Gai sensed a gust of refreshing soul power entering her body. Her entire body seemed to have cleared up. She felt indescribably comfortable after that. If not for the fact that Huo Yuhao was sleeping, she would shout into the sky. Medicine can cure diseases. But matters of the heart can't be resolved through medicine. Young lady, I can tell that you really like him. Why? You're so pretty. Isn't he satisfied? Wang Xiana retracted her left hand and touched Yi Gai's head. Yi Gai felt much better after the knot in her heart was untied. As she looked at the benevolent look in the Immortal Doctor Doluo's eyes, her eyes turned red, and she gently shook her head. She said, he already has someone he likes. I don't blame him. Perhaps I'm only in love with the fact that he's so persistent towards love. The Immortal Doctor Doluo sighed and said, Young people. It's difficult to tell what love is. I was the same when I was young. It's just that loving someone doesn't mean possessing that person. Furthermore, there are other things to like and admire in this world. There's nothing wrong with liking him. Just don't be too stubborn. Otherwise, you'll only feel depressed your entire life. You must learn to let go, understand? Yes. Thanks for your advice, Elder. Yi Gai gently nodded. However, she couldn't help but turn her gaze towards Huo Yuhao. Wang Xiana smiled slightly. She knew that she couldn't fully convince Yi Gai in just a few words, especially when it came to matters of the heart. However, she could tell that she wasn't a stubborn person. Otherwise, the pent-up gas in her body would be even worse. He should be fine. However, he'll still need time to recover, since his passageways have been so seriously damaged. If I started healing from the start, I'd need at least half a year to fully heal him. I can't even guarantee that there won't be any side effects. His entire cultivation might even be disabled. However, his life energy is too strong. He must have experienced something special, and is thus able to recover on his own. In my opinion, he should be fine in at most 10 days. I've got to say that this is a miracle. Recover in 10 days. That's fantastic. Yi Gai couldn't help but cheer. At this moment, the curtains to the tent opened and Nan Chuchia walked in. What's so great? Is Yuhao fine? Nan Chuchia quickly walked to Yi Gai's side and looked at Huo Yuhao. Seeing that he was still the same as the night before, she revealed a disappointed look on her face. The Immortal Doctor Doluo laughed, yet another one. There are so many guys out there. Why do all of you fall for the same guy? There's no future. Isn't it more painful? However, you aren't that bad. At least you don't have a mental knot because of your crush for him. Nan Chuchia's face turned red, and she said, Elder, don't make fun of me. I don't like this guy. It's Sister Gai who likes him. The Immortal Doctor Doluo laughed, I'm old, but I'm not blind. If I can't even tell that you like him, won't I have lived the last 200 years in vain? All right, I won't bother with the issues of young people anymore. You can deal with your own problems. Remember, don't touch him. If his passageways move, there'll be trouble. Yes. Nan Chuchio and Yi Gai hurriedly acknowledged her words. The Immortal Doctor Doluo left, and both of them looked at each other. Nan Chuchio stuck out her tongue at Yi Gai, who smiled back. After this, both of them turned their attention to Huo Yuhao. Nan Chuchio twisted her lips and said, What's so good about this guy? Who likes him? HMPH. He's always so mysterious. He's not even 20, but he acts like a 40 or 50-year-old man. Yi Gai was amused as she looked at her. Why do I recall someone mentioning before that she likes guys who are more mature and capable? Nan Chuchio's face turned red, and she said, Is that so? Who said that? Who's that person with such low taste? Yi Gai laughed. All right, it's not you. Her smile gradually faded away. As she looked at Huo Yuhao, she softly said, Elder Immortal Doctor said that we should let go. He won't belong to us. I can actually sense that he's in pain. What? He's in pain. So many of us like him. Furthermore, he's the future Hallmaster of the Sea Gods Pavilion. He also holds an important position in the Tang sect too. He's even the in-name master of the Spirit Pagoda. He's so decorated. What's there to feel pain over? Yi Gai glanced at her and said, Now you finally admit that you like him. He's actually in pain. I can sense it. Everything that you've mentioned is his achievements. However, have you ever thought of the amount of pressure he has to bear because of these achievements? It was still fine in the past, but ever since Donga went into a coma, his emotions were greatly affected. After this mission, I even feel that he seems to be less composed than before. If this were the past, he wouldn't have taken such a huge risk. Last night, I finally understood that maybe he doesn't want to live anymore. This was why he was willing to take such a huge gamble. Only he knows how painful he feels. Nan Chuchio furrowed her brow and asked, Isn't that Tang Wutong Wang Donga, who has lost her memories? Didn't everyone claim that? Yi Gai rolled her eyes and said, For goodness sake, can you be more observant? Haven't you realized that Huo Yuhao has been very ceremonious towards Tang Wutong? He's so polite that it feels as if they are strangers. She's not even as close to him as we are. What does that mean? Given his character, would he act like that if Tang Wutong was really Wang Donga? He must have used some method to verify that Tang Wutong isn't actually Wang Donga. This is why he's acting like this. It's also since then that I felt that his emotions have become a little abnormal. After hearing her words, Nan Chuchio stuck out her tongue and said, It seems so. If that Tang Wutong isn't Wang Donga, where can Wang Donga be then? Actually, I feel that we probably don't even stand a chance even if Wang Donga is dead. This fellow is too stubborn. He only loves Wang Donga. Wang Chua looked so alike to Wang Donga and sacrificed so much for him, but even that didn't change his heart. Yi Gai said, "This is why we should let go. Let's keep this as a beautiful memory. We are from different worlds. I only hope that he can find Donga soon, and start to feel happy once again." Nan Chocho gave Yi Gai a weird look. "Sister Gai, I suddenly feel that you're very noble." Yi Gai chuckled and replied, "What's there to be noble about? If I stood even the slightest chance, I'd do my best to fight for it. I wouldn't even bother with my face. However, you've said it. We have no chance at all. In that case, we can only wish him the best." Outside the tent, a person was quietly standing there. She had already come ever since the Immortal Doctor Dolor left, but she didn't enter the tent. She only eavesdropped on Nan Chocho and Yi Gai's conversation. When she heard to this point, she turned around and silently walked off. For some reason, she started to feel slightly lonely deep in her heart. Nan Chocho took over from Yi Gai to keep watch over Huo Yuhao until lunchtime, when the next change was made. Jiang Nan replaced Nan Chocho. After that, it was Jing Xian. Jing Xian's shift lasted until nighttime. Wutong, rest for 2 hours after dinner before replacing Xian. "Do you have any questions?" Shu Sanxia asked Tang Wutong. Tang Wutong was stunned for a moment before she shook her head and replied, "I'm fine." Shu Sanxia naturally said, "That's great then. I asked Elder Immortal Doctor Dolor earlier, and she said that Yuhao's passageways have basically joined up again, but they'll need some time to heal. His shirt is filled with blood stains, which isn't great for his body. Can you help him his shirt at night? Please be careful." "All right." Tang Wutong subconsciously agreed to his request. By the time she realized that it was inconvenient for a lady to help a guy change his shirt, Shu Sanxia had already left. She wanted to stop him, but she didn't do so in the end. Shu Sanxia revealed a grin on his face as he walked away. "Yuhao, I've already helped you so much. You must do your best and recover quickly." After dinner, Tang Wutong returned to her tent. She had 2 hours to rest. However, she couldn't calm herself down as she sat on her bed. She discovered that she was actually eagerly waiting for the 2 hours to pass. However, the 2 hours passed very slowly. She couldn't calm herself down at all, and even started pacing up and down inside her tent in order to compose herself. Finally, 2 hours passed. She quickly charged out of her tent and proceeded to the opposite tent. "Wutong, you're here." Jing Xian stood up to receive her, as she saw her walking over. "Oh yes, Sister Xian. It's been tough on you. How is he?" Tang Wutong asked softly. Jing Xian smiled and replied, "Everything's fine. I'll pass him on to you. I'll return to rest now." "All right, don't worry." Tang Wutong acknowledged her words and saw Jing Xian out of the tent. After Jing Xian left, she returned to Huo Yuhao's side. Her breathing quickened. "Am I really going to be with him the entire night? Everyone knows about it too. Nothing will happen. Didn't Gai remain here for the entirety of last night too? I can do the same." Tang Wutong slowly walked to Huo Yuhao's bedside and watched him in his deep sleep. His face was still as pale as ever, but it was less sallow than it was the previous night. His breathing had also become more rhythmic. He was still wearing what Shu Sanxia gave him at the last minute then. When she saw how blood-stained his shirt was, she couldn't help but recall Huo Yuhao's naked look when he helped her to bear the strike of the light of the death god. She turned slightly red from embarrassment. "I shall help him clean up his body first." She filled a basin with clean water before returning to the tent. After that, she used her own basin to collect some hot water and adjusted the temperature of the water to a suitable temperature using the water in the other basin. She didn't use the towel in Huo Yuhao's tent. She wasn't willing to admit to herself that Yi Gai had used it to clean up Huo Yuhao the previous night, and thus she didn't want to use it at all. She used her own towel. After soaking the towel in warm water, she sat by Huo Yuhao's bedside and carefully unbuttoned his shirt. She shuddered slightly when she touched Huo Yuhao's chest. Helping a guy to unbutton his shirt was indeed very embarrassing. Her face turned red from embarrassment, and her body had evidently warmed up too. Even the temperature in the tent seemed to have risen due to her embarrassment. After pausing for a moment, she decided to pinch his breast and slowly remove the front of his shirt. After this, she gently released her soul power, lifting Huo Yuhao's body and removing his shirt. After she was done, she discovered that there was a layer of sweat on her forehead. To a soul sage, this wasn't considered too tedious. However, she actually broke out in a sweat. How nervous must she be? Huo Yuhao's body started to release a blood fog, and some of the blood stains on his body had already dried up. When she removed his shirt earlier, it was evident that many of the blood stains had already adhered to his body. Tang Wutong used a little warm water to dab at the surface of his shirt, hoping to dissolve some of the dried bloodstains before removing them. She managed to keep Huo Yuhao's body levitated in the air using her soul power. After that, she released her radiant dragon god's butterfly and used one side of its wings to lift his body. Following this, she quickly ducked down below him and used the moist towel to wipe off the bloodstains on his back. She started to perspire more and more, releasing a slight fragrance from her body. She was very focused as she did all this. Her face had turned red, but she felt a sense of achievement after cleaning Huo Yuhao's body. She was even feeling satisfied. She carefully placed him on the bed. It was time to wipe off the front of his body. She cleaned the towel in the warm water before wiping his face. After wiping his face, she wiped his brows. She felt cramping pains in her heart when she saw his pale face. He's really seriously injured. After wiping his face, she started wiping his neck before proceeding to his chest, arms, armpits, belly and waist. His body was soon very clean, after Tang Wutong meticulously cleaned him up. After she was finished, she let out a long breath. She had become much more relaxed. She lifted her wrist and used her sleeves to wipe off her perspiration. After chuckling, she muttered to herself, "So I'm actually capable of waiting on others. If Dad knew about this, I wonder what kind of reaction he'd have." However, her grin didn't last very long. This was because her gaze landed on Huo Yuhao's pants. "I'm done with his top. What about the bottom? Clean? Or not?" She was in a difficult spot as she looked at his blood-stained pants. Even though she had taken a peek at his nude body that night, it was still different from the situation now. Everyone was in peril at that point in time, and couldn't care so much. However, they were alone in a tent right now. Even though he was in a coma, an intimate atmosphere was slowly brewing in the tent right now. She was in a daze as she looked at Huo Yuhao. Tang Wutong seemed to have been struck with an epiphany. She pulled the blanket across the entire top half of his body and covered it up. She turned around and came to the front of his tent. She looked out, and only returned after verifying that there was no one around. After taking in a few deep breaths, Tang Wutong made her decision. She swiped her right hand over his belt before it broke. She pulled the blanket down slightly, all the way until it covered his crotch. After that, she carefully lifted his body with her soul power, and used warm water to moisten the bloodstains on his pants. Following this, she slowly pulled down his pants. With the blanket, she managed to cover his most vital area. At least nothing embarrassing was on display. It was only after this that she wiped down his exposed legs. Watching the bloodstains disappear, Tang Wutong heaved a huge sigh of relief. Her forehead was covered in perspiration once again. She twisted her lips at Huo Yuhao before sticking out her tongue. "This fellow is indeed tiring me out. What should I do next? How can I help him clean up that part of his body?" After all, she was unmarried. She couldn't bring herself to clean up such a private part of a guy, even though she might be slightly fond of him. After hesitating for a moment, she immediately turned around and ran out. She went to call Shu Sanxia. When Shu Sanxia came over and saw Huo Yuhao's exposed legs, he almost burst out laughing. However, he appeared to be very composed on the surface. "Senior Shu, I can't help him with that part. I've already pulled his pants down. Please give him a hand. As she spoke, Tang Wutong embarrassedly passed the towel in her hand to Shusansha. After that, she turned around and ran away. Shusansha didn't make fun of her. She was already embarrassed enough. He knew exactly when to and when not to make jokes. He knew what the limits were. After cleaning up Huo Yuhao's vital area, he helped him put on a clean set of pants. Looking at Tang Wutong's embarrassed face and the beads of sweat on the tip of her nose, Shusansha concernedly asked, "I'm done. Wutong, are you fine? If you aren't, I can help you take care of him for a while." Tang Wutong shook her head gently and said, "I'm fine. Senior Shu, let me do it." "All right, tell me if you need help." After he finished speaking, Shusansha turned around and left. Tang Wutong sat by his bedside and continued to watch Huo Yuhao as he slept. She let out a long breath. What she did earlier was even more tiring than cultivating for an entire day. It wasn't physically draining, but it was mentally tiring. She felt a sense of achievement as she saw how clean Huo Yuhao was. This guy is really good. He made me so tired. HMPH. When he wakes up, I'm going to deal with him. As she sat by his bedside and watched him sleep, she relaxed her mind and slowly started to fall asleep. Something like this wouldn't happen normally, but she was too tensed up earlier. Right now, she unwittingly felt a strong sense of lethargy when she relaxed. Even Tang Wutong didn't know when she fell onto the bed. When she fell onto the bed, she squirmed, but didn't touch Huo Yuhao. She was like a kitten as she fell into a deep sleep. The sky turned darker and darker. Suddenly, Huo Yuhao gently moved. His right hand was trembling and came into contact with Tang Wutong's hand. He subconsciously hooked her finger, and his breathing had evidently become faster. His lips were also shaking slightly. Ever since he had descended into a deep sleep that day, Huo Yuhao kept experiencing dreams and nightmares. Everything in the past replayed in his mind. His tragic childhood, tough period of cultivation in Shrek Academy, happy times with Wang Donga, and their 4 fusion skills all surfaced in his mind. Wang Donga and Wang Qiu's departure, and all sorts of pain also filled his head. Cool sensations suddenly coursed over his body amidst all that pain, and these sensations gradually extinguished the flames of agony within him. That refreshing feeling was exceptionally comfortable, and Huo Yuhao's nerves gradually relaxed in his deep slumber. In his dream, Donga had returned to his side and was leaning down next to him. He could smell her faint fragrance as he was holding her petite hand, and he could feel his heart calming down completely. All the torturous pain and agony that he had sustained in the past were nothing with Donga around, and everything was no longer painful as long as she was back. At least, there was a crisp sweetness after the bitterness. The first ray of sunlight seeped into the tent in the next morning and shone right on Tang Wutong's face. She wanted to raise her hand subconsciously to shade herself from the sunlight, but she realized that her hand felt a little heavy. Tang Wutong opened her eyes. Her large and pinkish-blue eyes were still a little blurry and sleepy, and the first thing she saw was a pale, but slightly rosy cheek. The blurriness in her eyes immediately vanished as her big beautiful eyes widened in an instant. Everything went blank in her mind. Where am I? Why is there someone sleeping next to me? She nearly kicked out, but she had a deep impression of this side profile that she was staring at, and she understood that this person couldn't be harmed. Tang Wutong forced herself to calm down and composed herself before she took a serious look at this person. It's him. Huo Yuhao. Tang Wutong's memory from the previous night finally returned. She thought to herself, to her apparent surprise, I fell asleep next to him. And I slept here for the entire night. Even though this fellow is still unconscious, but I slept with him for the entire night. Tang Wutong glanced down at her hand. She was astonished as she discovered that all of the fingers on her right hand were tightly interlocked with Huo Yuhao's right hand, as if that was how it was supposed to be. That can't be. What are you doing, Tang Wutong? Tang Wutong sat up, embarrassed, as she swiftly pulled her hand back. She blushed from the embarrassment, he's still unconscious, and it's evident that he wasn't the one who reached over to grab me. Does this mean that not only did I sleep next to him, but I also decided to hold his hand? That is just unbelievable. Tang Wutong placed her hands against her cheeks, which were burning up. She didn't dare to look at Huo Yuhao. Suddenly, footsteps could be heard outside the tent. Tang Wutong bounced to her feet, as if she had been shocked. She stood beside the bed, as she circulated her soul power, so that she could calm herself down. The curtain was lifted as Shusansha and Jiang Nannan walked in from outside. They looked at Tang Wutong, who was standing beside the bed, and Jiang Nannan couldn't help but laugh at her as she said, "Wutong, even if you're taking care of Huo Yuhao, you don't have to keep standing up. How is he? Has anything changed?" Tang Wutong's back was facing them as she nodded and said, "He's doing well. Everything's normal." Shusansha and Jiang Nannan came beside the bed. Shusansha glanced at Tang Wutong and caught her embarrassed and blushed expression. From his perspective, she was clearly still feeling embarrassed about cleaning up Huo Yuhao during the previous night. He couldn't help but laugh inside, but he didn't expose her. Yuhao's complexion seems a lot better than before. "Look, there's traces of rosiness on his face," Jiang Nannan said elatedly. "Wasn't that right?" Shusansha looked down, and could tell that Huo Yuhao's face was much rosier than the past few days, while his breathing was evidently a lot thicker and more stable. "Wutong, you take the best care of him. Seems like he'll recover very quickly," Shusansha praised her. "Yes, I hope he will recover as soon as possible," Tang Wutong answered subconsciously. Jiang Nannan said, "Wutong, you must be tired after taking care of him for the entire night. You should go back and rest. Sansha and I will take turns to look after him today, in the day." "Oh, okay," Tang Wutong nodded in their direction before she hurriedly stepped out. She raced into her own tent after exiting Huo Yuhao's tent. Jiang Nannan glanced at the tent's curtain, which was still swaying a little. She muttered confusedly, why does she seem like she's escaping from something?" Shusansha chuckled and said, "Who knows? In the end, Yuhao is in such bad shape, and he can't do anything bad to her even if he wanted to. Nothing could have happened." Jiang Nannan blushed as she glared at him and said, "Only you would think about doing bad things every day." Shusansha grabbed her around her slim waist and said, "Did you not say last night that bad things actually feel quite good? PSH. You're such an asshole. How can you say such things? If you keep going, stay away from me next time." Jiang Nannan retorted angrily as she blushed even more. All right, I'll stop. I'll stop talking." Shusansha apologized again and again. His eyes suddenly widened as he spoke. That was because he suddenly noticed that the corner of Huo Yuhao's mouth actually curved upward a little, as if he was smiling. Huo Yuhao recovered very quickly indeed, and he finally awakened from his deep slumber that same afternoon. Even though his body was still very weak, his mind was clear and awake, and that undoubtedly meant he was starting towards a path to speedy recovery. Shusansha was taking care of Huo Yuhao in the afternoon. He had just fed Huo Yuhao some water before he lowered his voice and said menacingly, "You little rascal, did you hear something you were not supposed to hear this morning?" Huo Yuhao couldn't help laugh as he said, "No. I didn't hear anything at all." "Really?" Shusansha stared at him suspiciously, "But why did I feel like you were smiling this morning?" Huo Yuhao rolled his eyes and said, "Third senior brother, you must have a guilty conscience. What have you done this time?" PSH. I am righteous and honest. Why would I have a guilty conscience? Right, Yuhao, let's not talk about that. Our mission can be considered successfully completed. We have helped the Star Luo Empire regain the Mingdo mountain range, which they can use to directly threaten the Sun Moon Empire's own territory. We have fulfilled our strategic aim. Should we go back once you've recovered? Huo Yuhao answered, "Yes, it's about time to go back. We don't yet know what the situation is like with the Heavenly Soul Empire. If the Heavenly Soul Empire is completely conquered, the Sun Moon Empire will directly threaten the Academy. We should return to the academy as quickly as possible once I'm a little better. Shusansha said, all right then, doesn't seem like we have another choice. Right, the Star Luo Empire has ordered us to be rewarded for our merit in battle, and many rewards have been bestowed upon us. We have accepted all the monetary rewards, but we declined offers of noble titles. Your title is a hereditary marquis, what do you plan to do with that? Huo Yuhao sighed and said, forget about the rest. This title of hereditary marquis is useful to me, so I want that. How is the situation on the front lines? Shusansha said, the Star Luo Empire's garrisoned in the Mingdo mountain range after taking it back. They have sent several dozen small teams of soul masters to wreak havoc in the Sun Moon Empire. This is meant to attract the Sun Moon Empire's attention, but we have no idea what this measure will achieve. We no longer participated in their military operations after that day. Huo Yuhao said, that's all right. I trust that the White Tiger Duke won't make the same mistake with his eye for war strategies. The Star Luo Empire's elites are all here, and the Sun Moon Empire has to put in a lot of effort even if they deploy their large armies to attack the Mingdo mountain range to retake it. Furthermore, their main forces are all concentrated in the Heavenly Soul Empire. Shusansha laughed bitterly. I think the Star Luo Empire won't be that much of a threat to the Sun Moon Empire. The death god Doluo is too terrifying with her around. It will be very difficult to deal real damage to the Sun Moon Empire. A lamenting and frustrated look appeared in Huo Yuhao's eyes. How could he not be aware of what Shusansha had just told him? The death god Doluo, Yishishure, was an ultimate Doluo, and she possessed the powerful bloody demon puppet as her martial soul. She was his teacher's old lover, and this senior was simply too powerful. Huo Yuhao could still remember that his teacher once said it was difficult for evil soul masters to become titled Doluo, but if one such evil soul master eventually did become a titled Doluo, then there would be a calamity. The Holy Ghost Church had been hiding away for so many years, and their strength had finally matured. They possessed evil soul masters, who were also titled Doluo, and they even had an evil soul master, who was an ultimate Doluo. She possessed the Death God Pagoda, which had probably become a Class 10 soul tool. Yishishure was almost invincible in the human world, and she was directly involved in this war. The beast god Di Tian had scared her away this time, but what about the next time? A single individual's strength might not be able to change the outcome of a war, but a person with terrifying power such as hers was sufficient to turn the tides of battle. Furthermore, the Holy Ghost Church still had the Darkness Holy Dragon, Long Xiaoyao, who was yet another ultimate Doluo. The only two remaining ultimate Doluo in the world were both aiding the Sun Moon Empire. This was terribly disadvantageous for the Doluo continent's three native empires. The balance of this war had completely swung in favor of the Sun Moon Empire. The Star Luo Empire had regained the Mingdo mountain range, but what about the future? What would the future bring? The Sun Moon Empire's main forces were concentrated in the Heavenly Soul Empire, but the Death God Doluo was anchoring things down in the Sun Moon Empire, and it was hard to say how many of the Star Luo Empire's soldiers and soul masters would be annihilated. What was even more frightening was the fact that Yishishure was an evil soul master, and everyone could tell from the mental state that she had displayed the other day that her mind wasn't stable at all. Such a person wouldn't care about the deaths of normal citizens, and there was nothing at all that could threaten her. My strength is far from enough. If I can also become a titled Doluo, and perhaps even a transcendent Doluo, I might have a chance to stop her. But becoming a titled Doluo is so difficult. Huo Yuhao said nothing, and Shusansha said, I have already sent the news back, and I have reported the Death God Doluo, Yishishure's existence to the various elders of the Sea God's Pavilion. I think it won't be long before the Academy might throw themselves into the war after all, otherwise, the Sun Moon Empire will be unstoppable. This video will end here.